This is part 2 of my Escape Velocity plugin porting tutorial. So here I am in the graphics data file for EVnova, which is modded in the EV Classic plug, which is not actually a plug, but the replacement of the data files. So here I'm importing the target picked, which is now a bitmap, and I will then import the shipyard picked, now bitmap, after this. Again, I'm copying the original pics to keep the file IDs easy. Just one up from the previous. There's the shipyard view. These two ships look very alike, actually. Then the sprite is the most difficult one. First of all, you can't really copy the existing one. You have to make a new one. But if you remember, my sprite in part 1 was double size because it's easier to crop that way. So now I have to clean it up in GIMP before I can actually use it. It's a 6x6 sprite for 36 frames. Notice that it's 1 pixel off, and even 1 pixel off will put a white line on the side of the ship in the game. So I have to fix that. And generally it's just an edge, so that's the top edge in this case. I'll crop that out, and then I'll cut the size down. It should be a perfect square. And it is now. See, I would change the size there, splitting that in 2, but actually I can't do that yet. What I need to do in reality is keep this one in case I need to fiddle with it some more, and then make a new sprite which is in the correct size for actual use. Now the size in pixels of the sprite is not even the actual size in the game, because the game, of course, it's one out of those 36 frames that you actually see. In theory, you could take one side and divide by 6 and say it's that squared, but my experience is you really need to do trial and error with this. And I spent a considerable amount of time getting this right. 40 by 40 seems to work best for this one. And there we have it. It works after much trial and error, which you didn't get to see here. Now, of course, I have to name the asset so that I can navigate to it later. And I also have to make sure that the ID number is correct. However, even Escape Velocity Nova is not sophisticated enough to use this sprite as is. It needs a separate spin file, which is actually separate from the spins. It's in this Shan directory up here, which is primarily for ships. So here I actually can copy the Aztec's gunboat and make it the interceptor. So what I have to change is I have to change the sprite asset IDs. I have to change the dimensions. It'll be 40 by 40, the same as the sprite, as it will display. And if I had to change the hard points, I would do that too. But in this case, they're the same for the gunboat and the interceptor, so I don't have to do that. That ensures the weapons will exit the craft at the correct spot. But again, if you're copying the Shan, it's actually very easy to fiddle with. Now, testing is, of course, the next step. And the easiest way to do that is to cut the tech level of the ship to 1 and the cost to 0 so that I can open any character and test fly it in the actual game. One thing I should also point out, though, in case you didn't notice earlier, is I forgot the weapons. So before I can test fly it, I actually have to put in the correct weapons. When you insert weapons data into a ship asset, it must be the same asset IDs as the weapons in the weapons directory and not the outfits. Notice the outfits up on the upper right there. Those are for non-weapon outfits primarily. But if you want to put in weapons, you have to use the weapons asset ID. And you can, of course, have the weapons directory open there so that you can check the number of each one. They can be hard to remember. So here I'm saving. I'll then go into escape velocity and test. So I buy the Aztecs Interceptor. I double check that the trade-in value is correct. The outfits are referencing the weapons correctly. They are. So I depart. And I fly around a little bit. Make sure it handles correctly. Seems to handle pretty well. Double check the player again. Make sure that trade-in has remained the same. Not that I really have to. Some of the Confed battleships that I built as my very, very first EV plug back in the 90s. Those little frigates there are actually not frigates. They're also destroyers, as you can see from my target view there. I built those by just taking the frigates and changing the specs because I was lazy. So anyway, we can call that test a success and go back to EV-New and change the price and the tech levels back to the correct values. And we save again. You always have to save in EV-New. And that's it. Thanks for watching.